Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. I hope you're all doing really, really well today. Uh, we're going to look at Donnie Darko again. Of course, on October 2nd, 2024, there was an eclipse, an annular eclipse that happened to fall on the same day in a year of dragon, no less, and an election year, as the eclipse symbolism happened in the 2001 film Donnie Darko. Of course, that film was set in 1988, so we have the October 2nd, 1988 symbolism here, where he eclipses the lamp with the Eye of Horus back here. That's representing Sirius, and we have that eclipse where Donnie also um, is related to Frank the Rabbit and to the Buck Rabbit in IPG2 as well. And here we have that same October 2nd, the rabbit flashing in front of the iris of an eye, the pupil of an eye, excuse me, and we have the an eclipse symbolism being made from that as well. And so we get this eclipse symbol in Donnie Darko, which seems to indicate the beginning of the tangent universe. When you enter this tangent universe that's unstable, and that if you don't exit it properly with the living receiver, that's Donnie in the story, being the one who saves the world in a sense, then the world will come to an end when the tangent universe collapses upon itself and returns to the primary universe 28 days later. And so anyways, we have this October 2nd start date that ends October 30th. And coincidentally, this year we did have an October 2nd eclipse. Very interestingly as well, in the film, in this period between October 2nd and October 30th, Donnie floods the school in Middlesex, which also seems to be in the neighborhood of Sarasota in the film. Interestingly, in IPG2, this school is the school where George Bush was with the teacher and the children. Okay, that happened in Sarasota, Florida. Outside the school is a major water event. The fence even going into the water here. The water around the land looks like it's been washed away a little bit by this serious flooding. Symbolism perhaps of waves or shark attacks and these sorts of things back here. And then shortly after that, we have the 9/11 towers falling. So we get our 9/11 attacks, perhaps the second 9/11 after the flooding event in Sarasota, like Hurricane Milton. And in Donnie Darko as well, what do we have? Jim Cunningham, the pedophile. We're going to talk a lot about him later in this video. A very important figure, and we're going to try to unpack what he's representing here. But he was arrested where? At Sarasota Heights Golf Club. And when she, Ms. Pomeroy, had to make books available at the mall because the school didn't want her to use a certain book anymore, censoring teaching and the literature there. She made them available at Sarasota Mall, indicating that the school in Middlesex was probably in what neighborhood? The Sarasota neighborhood. And so we have the flooding of the school at Sarasota again in Donnie Darko, which was between the October 2nd and October 30th date range during the tangent universe period. And so if we go back up here and we look at this eclipse, we say, oh, we have the eclipse on October 2nd. Subsequent to that eclipse during the tangent universe period from October 2nd to October 30th, we have a flooding of a Sarasota school, so flooding of Sarasota with a hurricane, which there's other symbolism of hurricanes in Donnie Darko, I think, and things that point to it. And 1988 and 2024 also being a year of a dragon, possibly another thing to take notice of. And the film is set during an election year. Okay, so 2024, of course, is also an election year, with a Donnie character being very important in this election, with Donald Trump being that guy. So what we're going to look at now is what can we gain from this film as far as understanding what's going on right now. So first, I just want to make a few observations. The film starts with fade in. Here, after thunder, you hear thunder. That's the first sound of the film. And what do we see? We descend upon, in the script, we descend upon Carpathian Ridge. That's what this mountain ridge area is. It's a crescent-shaped cliff that extrudes from the dense Virginia evergreens and so on. But Carpathian Ridge is an interesting name. Carpathian refers to anything related to the Carpathian Mountains, a major mountain range in Eastern Europe that extends across several countries, including Romania, Ukraine, Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Serbia. In other words, This is the region of the world right now involved in the Russia-Ukraine war, NATO perhaps being involved in its own way already, but perhaps at some point going to expand and involve NATO more. Just yesterday, I saw some news talking about how Putin has his eyes on other countries now and this sort of thing. They're still playing this up, trying to get NATO involved, perhaps, and so that would be in this region. So perhaps it's pointing to this coming, this storm coming in the Carpathian Ridge area. I'm not sure, but certainly this idea of thunder at the beginning of the storm is important in Donnie Darko. When Donnie goes on Poetry Day, gives his poem, he says, "A storm is coming," Frank says, "a storm that will swallow the children, and I will deliver them from the kingdom of pain. I will deliver the children to their doorsteps. I will send the monsters back to the underground." So delivering the children to their doorsteps, bringing them back home safely, I guess is the idea, and destroying the monsters, sending them back underground. I will send them back to the place where no one can see them except for me, because I am Donnie Darko. Okay, and so the film has Donnie delivering children from a pedophile system that Jim Cunningham was involved in. When Donnie burns down Jim's house, and that's the Patrick Swayze character, of course, when he burns down Jim's house, and it's exposed that he was involved in a child sex ring or child porn ring or something like that. Donnie saving the children. A storm is coming, a political storm, perhaps, in which Donnie will show up and he will challenge the powers that be, which are involved in all sorts of perversions and things like this, and child abuse and so on. Also, we have Grandma Death, Roberta Sparrow, the author of the Philosophy of Time Travel, which was important in the film. She also comes to Donnie at the end of the film after Donnie had shot Frank. Frank was his sister's boyfriend, who was dressed as a rabbit on Halloween, for Halloween, a Halloween party. And Frank then gets involved as a manipulated dead, time traveling back and sort of navigating Donnie through the tangent universe in order to make sure he saves the world. Well, anyways, Frank, when after he gets shot, Roberta Sparrow comes. I thought he was doing some work here at the house, but Roberta Sparrow came and told Donnie, "A storm is coming. You must hurry." Okay, so this theme of a storm coming in the film is very important. Okay, so either way, we have the beginning with the Carpathian Ridge and the storm coming, thunder. Now, I think at the title screen, I just want to point this out because we've not looked at the title screen yet, but if you have noticed, you have Donnie Darko, the dot on the eye turns into a bright light and leaves a lens flare like the Eclipse. That is the Heliofant symbol, the dot on the eye being the bright light, and the annular eclipse ring of fire symbol that goes with it in the proper position. That is the same symbol. That bright light ends up overtaking the whole thing and making the whole screen go white, and then we get the opening montage, which has the trampoline. You'll see the trampoline 4 different times in the film with 5 different people jumping on it, perhaps representing the 5 eclipses, the black holes, and so on. But we go in and we get this question: where is Donnie? Like, you're supposed to be looking for Donnie, trying to understand who Donnie is, and so on. And then we have our first dialogue, and it begins with, "I'm voting for Dukakis." That sets the stage. The film is about politics. It's a political film in a lot of ways, okay? And this home is going to represent the United States, I believe, with the U.S. flag at the top of the home, the Swan Song Records label poster next to it in Donnie's room. And Elizabeth says, "I'm voting for Dukakis." And Donnie's biggest supporter throughout the film, Eddie, his dad, says, "Perhaps when you have children of your own that need braces and you can't afford them because half your husband's paycheck goes to the federal government, you'll regret that decision." He is a Republican. He's against Dukakis, in favor of the George Bush candidacy at the time, and he is a big supporter of Donnie throughout the film. Elizabeth, of course, being a Democrat, and Elizabeth's mom, Rose, laughing when she responds, "My husband's paycheck," as if she's rejecting the patriarchy and the traditional values of the father or the husband being the provider and the woman not being working from home or whatever, this sort of thing. She's rejecting that model, coming across more like the progressive values, person representing progressive values, as opposed to traditional values. So we're getting right, left divide. Rose sort of laughs at this remarks, sympathetic with it a bit. And what we find is Donnie has unfiltered speech. throughout the film. He has no filter, and he says like it is, or at least like he thinks it is. And this many people find very offensive. Like Rose finds it very, very offensive and disgusting and distasteful. And Eddie, on the other hand, his supporter, seems to find it funny and supports it and even encourages him to keep speaking that way. Okay? And so we get the divide where Donnie will come into the scene, think Donald Trump, coming onto the scene and speaking without a filter, very offensive to the opposition, but excites the base, right? And his those who support him. And so that's what we see in this film. This is going to lead to a divide in the home that splits the home in the film, and we'll get there soon. Just to continue this political theme in the film, we see Donnie, even in this argument at the beginning of the film, he says, "I'm all ears," which is pointing to Ross Perot, I think, famous "I'm all ears" quote. And Ross Perot, of course, was pushed as the father of Trump. He led the way for Trump. You can find all sorts of articles about this. This was a big thing that Ross Perot sort of is the model that Trump is following, or seems to have followed in his political career. Now we see again, Rose is disgusted by Donnie's unfiltered speech at the table and by the unfiltered speech of her children at the table. And Eddie, when the youngest daughter, Samantha, repeats something, he finds it hilarious. He's laughing, and that's the end of that scene. So we're seeing already at the very beginning the divide, the difference in how they view this. Confirming the Republican interpretation of Eddie, he wakes up, looks at, he's watching television, he sees Dukakis, you son of a, and you tell him, George, very supportive of Bush, opposed to Dukakis, and so here is the Republican supporter of Donnie. When we go to the bedroom, we see again the symbolism of the United States and Donnie saying, "Get out of the room, get out of my room," to the mother, and then being unfiltered again as she leaves, calling her an expletive, right? And that is again a confirmation. And in fact, that is the last thing Donnie says to his mother before the tangent universe at the beginning of the film. And then at the end of the film, when we go back to this point in time, would have been the last thing he said to her before he died. Okay? These would be his last words to her. Okay? So, let's see. Continuing. Now, one of the things that we have with this political figure who divides the home is a shot taken at him in Donnie Darko. First off, that night after he goes out, Frank the Rabbit leads him out of his room, and he sleepwalks over to the golf course, and he falls asleep on the green. That's after he wrote the 28 days and so many weeks, 28 days. What was it again? It's 28 days, 6 hours. I don't remember right top of my head, but you know the thing is, until the end of the world is a period of time. And a shot is taken that rolls within inches of his head and misses. Okay, so a shot's taken and misses. That's at the beginning of the tangent universe. Here we have this artifact that entered the tangent universe, okay, that made everybody curious. This is the jet engine that fell into Donnie's room. But Donnie had been taken out of the room because of Frank. Now Donnie is out of the room, and this falls in. What is this? There's no playing with it. It's symbolic of a bullet. You think, oh, that's ridiculous, John. You're nuts. That's not a bullet. It's just a jet engine. And well, first off, the jet engine does have sort of the shape, roughly, of the bullet in some ways. But it's just much bigger. And we actually have confirmation from the text of the film, or from the film itself. That night when they can't stay in their home, so they go to a hotel. The FAA pays, I believe, if I remember correctly. And they go, and Eddie says to his wife, Rose, "Frankie Fiedler." She says, "What?" "Frankie Fiedler." Yeah, it's interesting. That's a Frank. Frank the Rabbit, who also was shot. "Frankie Fiedler, you remember him from high school? He was a year ahead of us. He died. Remember, on the way to the prom? He was doomed." They could have said the same thing about our Donnie, but he dodged it. He dodged his bullet, Rose. He dodged his bullet. Okay, this is the bullet that Donnie dodged. That's at the beginning of the film, and at the end of the film, he doesn't dodge the bullet. So I don't know what that suggests. It could suggest that there is a successful attempt. It could suggest something different, and we can speculate about that a little later, but this is something to watch for because it could be indicating that the shot that missed initially will eventually come back and get him at the end. Okay, but here we have another confirmation that this artifact, because this is the artifact that made people also curious in the Tangent universe, because it was, it's a jet engine, but there was no plane. Okay, the artifact in the living from the philosophy of time travel film says, when a tangent universe occurs, those living nearest to the vortex will find themselves at the epicenter of a dangerous new world. Artifacts provide the first sign that a tangent universe has occurred. If an artifact occurs, the living will retrieve it with great interest and curiosity. Artifacts are formed from metal, such as, the examples are weapons, an arrowhead from the ancient Mayan civilization, or a metal sword from medieval Europe. Different time periods, and different types of weapons. Or what would it be in the modern world? A bullet. Okay, and so I think they're pointing to this being a bullet. Now we continue. Donnie's unfiltered speech being highlighted again when he's dealing with Kitty Farmer, in his gym teacher at school, who is a loyal follower of Jim Cunningham, just loves the man, thinks he's the greatest person in the world, and so on. And she is teaching the lifeline, doing the lifeline exercise that comes from Jim Cunningham's work. The fear on one side of the spectrum, love on the other side of the spectrum, and everything sort of falls on the spectrum of love to fear. And Donnie's like, that's ridiculous. It doesn't all fall on that. And he, lashes out at her a bit and tells her to shove the lifeline exercise card into her anus. And so she becomes furious, takes him to the principal's office. And the Principal Cole, is going to sit down and bring in the parents, have this conversation with Eddie and Rose and Donnie and Kitty in the room. And notice Cole is also a Jim Cunningham devotee. He's got the Love Jim Cunningham magazine here on his desk, showing up in the scene to make sure you realize that he's part of the Cunningham system. He's been friendly. And throughout the film, almost all important people in the film are flattering Cunningham, supporting Cunningham, admiring Cunningham. They just love this guy. He's just the greatest thing. And anyways, Principal Cole asked Donnie, "What'd you say?" And Kitty says, "I'll tell you what he said. He told me to forcibly insert the lifeline exercise card into my anus." And Rose was furious, annoyed, offended. And Eddie can barely hold in his laughter. And as they walk out, Eddie's laughing, Rose not amused at all. Okay, so again, we're getting the divide. Donnie's, outspoken, unfiltered, offensive speech is fantastic to the Republican supporter and deeply offensive to the opposition. Okay, to those who do not like that type of speech and his approach. And in fact, they're going to go and talk to his psychiatrist, have a meeting, and she's going to say, he's been acting up ever since this incident, the engine and the shot taken at him, if you want to think of it that way. And she says, and he's like, "I don't think it's fair to mention that one because, I think he was justified in telling her to shove the lifeline up her anus." Okay, and so there is a division here. In fact, it's bad enough that that night, Loki says, "I don't think telling anyone to forcibly insert an object up her anus is something that should go without consequences," says Rose. "I think we should buy him a moped. Reward him for it," says Eddie. "I think we should get a divorce." This is the division of the house over Eddie's rhetoric. And this little smirk, this whole scene, that's all that happens in the scene. Not really an explanation before it or after it, why it's even in there. It's just there to point out that the house is divided over Donnie's speech, and it's going to lead to a divorce. Perhaps a reference to civil conflict, civil unrest, or even a secession of some states eventually after the election, or a shooting, or something people believe that they need to get out of the country, whatever, leading to ultimately to a civil war conflict. Not sure. But that seems to be pointed at, and the Donnie rhetoric and Donnie's place in the film seems to be what leads to it. Now, what does Eddie think about Donnie's rhetoric? Donnie says, "I'm crazy." And he says, "No, you're not crazy. I used to be crazy, but you're not crazy. Look, you're my only son. I know I'm not the best communicator, but whatever happens to you, be honest. Tell the truth. See, speak your mind. Say it." Okay, even if they do look at you funny, and they will. But what you got to understand, son, is that almost all of those people are full of crap. They're all part of this great big conspiracy bullcrap. And they're scared of people like you because those bullcrappers know that you're smarter than them. You know what to say, what you say to people like that? F you. Okay? And so Donnie here is being encouraged by him to oppose the bullcrap of the conspiracy and the conspirators. Oh, that background noise isn't too loud. I didn't expect him to be doing that right now, but whatever. Okay. So there's a conspiracy that Donnie is the opponent of, allegedly. He's the one that is, how do I put it? This is like he's drain the swamp, go against the liars, the deceivers, those who are destroying the world, our country, and all of this. They're a part of a conspiracy. They're deceiving everybody. You call them out on it. You go out there and make the change and make the difference. You're smarter than them, better than them, and all that. Okay? And so that's how the Republicans are viewing Donnie. They're pushing for him to oppose the conspiracy, drain the swamp, all that good stuff. Now you might wonder, who is the conspiracy in the film? There's a system in the film that is headed by a guy Donnie calls the Antichrist in the film. Okay? That's the Jim Cunningham character. We see the system is characterized by what? Pedophilia, child sex abuse, lies, deceptions, nonsense, moral values that are just overly simple, simplistic, embarrassing, and foolish, and so on, coming from Jim Cunningham. Okay, and Donnie calls him the effing Antichrist when he's giving his little lecture or whatever, at the school, and he says everything he says is an effing lie. That is Jim Cunningham, and I think he represents, above all else, he sort of represents the system as a whole, but I think above all else he represents the papacy, which historically by Protestants was understood to be the Antichrist who always lied, and we know that the papacy and the Roman Catholic Church has been protecting pedophile priests in various ways, moving them around. Not every single person in church, but the system going up very high has been and had been. And so we see this representation. We also see when he goes into his house, Donnie goes into his house to burn his house, and he has a big picture of himself on the wall. Again, gives the impression almost like a religious leader, like the Pope having his own paintings on the walls and things. And then you have his followers, his devoted followers in the film, okay, including the main representation of all his followers, Kitty, like the paradigmatic example of what a follower of Jim Cunningham is like. And she's got her God is awesome shirt on, like a religious understanding of this whole situation, right? Like she's supposed to represent the faithful follower of the system, the religious system, okay? And she's also morally and intellectually simple and pathetic. She's hypocritical, self-righteous. She looks down on everybody else but herself, but can't see her own defects. She calls out Rose a couple times on just not being a good parent, basically, because Donnie isn't the perfect child and offended her, and so therefore Rose must be a terrible mother, and everything. Right, this is her, and she's going to defend Jim Cunningham even after knowing that his child sex ring stuff had been exposed. She's going to fight for him because it has to be a lie. Has to. She can't help but trust the system, believe in him, and so on. And she also was the one that was pushing for censorship of the books that Ms. Pomeroy was teaching in the class, and eventually that push led to another Jim Cunningham follower, Principal Cole, who had his magazine on his desk when he was dealing with the Donnie's unfiltered speech again earlier. He ends up firing Ms. Pomeroy, putting an end to freedom of speech, which also is the end of America in the film, because they silence people. Once you silence people, you don't have the United States anymore. And that's not me just saying that. I'm saying that what they're saying in the film is this, because when he fires Pomeroy, look what happens. She leaves the classroom after talking to Donnie and takes the American flag with her. Right, there she goes. She just got fired. Donnie and her had her conversation. Watch, we're going to get a conspicuous view of the flag. It's going to be very clear. There it is, big flag. The United States flag. Open the door, and bye, bye, America gone. Okay, because we ended free speech. That came from that system, the conspiracy of the bull crappers that Eddie was talking about, that is all full of the pedophiles, the perversion, and the evil that Donnie's going to expose. Now you say, when is Donnie going to destroy it? When in the film, Donnie Darko, does Donnie put down and bring this all to light, and we start to see this evil being exposed to bring down the system? Well, he was at the theater. Remember, he leaves the theater. He's going to go burn down Jim Cunningham's house while the talent show's happening. So we see the talent show on the one hand, and Donnie in the separate, parallel scenes going and doing the burning down of the Jim Cunningham house. And here we get Charita Chen doing the swan song dance, right? And she's artistic, it's intelligent, it's thoughtful, it's all that. But it's made fun of. People have no interest. They don't understand. They don't care that this is the swan song. We're at the end. Then we go to Sparkle Nation. The next dance come out, which is what? Sexualized children, taught by Kitty Farmer, the loyal follower of Jim Cunningham, how to do this dance, which, again, I think it's deliberately made to be hypersexualized for this age group, I think. But here we get the 5 eclipse symbolism. That's Sparkle Nation. They put their 5 fingers up. They do the 5. They turn around, and now they're going to eclipse their face. Watch. Eclipse. Boom. Boom. Okay? That is not just in this scene. That is the scene at the beginning of the film when we have a montage at the school for the first time. There they are. They're outside, and they do the 5 fingers in the air, and they go straight to the eclipse. Boom. 5. 5 eclipses. In other words, what you get is the swan song is coming, the end of the U.S., the end of the system. Okay? Then you get the Sparkle Nation 5 eclipses show up. That's the climax of this talent show. Everybody's excited about that. That is representing the 5 eclipses. And while that's happening, with Kitty Farmer leading it, what do we have? There it is. There they're dancing. Kitty calling for them, go, go, go. They're dancing, doing their stuff. And here's Donnie sneaking into Jim Cunningham's house, and he is going to burn down the house, the system. The conspirators can expose their pedophilia and all that stuff. And that's when it happens. It takes off during the 5 eclipse period, which happened between August 2017 with the Great American Eclipse and April 2024, which that eclipse continues covering the period after it, which was the 5th of those 5 key eclipses. And that is the period of time when Donald Trump also emerged as president and was president, did all his thing. And we've had these elections with the controversies, the problems, and now the shot taken at Trump, and that missed him, and who knows where it's going now. Okay, and so we have all this happening in the film. Very, very fascinating, I think. Now let's see. We'll go here. Ultimately, at the end of the tangent universe, when it collapses upon itself, we have the shot comes back when Donnie's in his bed and takes out the U.S. flag with it, and takes down the Swan Song Records label with it, which was on the ceiling, and kills Donnie. Okay, now where did that come from? Where did the shot come from? The Carpathian Ridge. Again, that's the area over there in Eastern Europe. Of course, that's not really Eastern Europe. It's supposed to be Virginia in the film, but this is where the vortex happened, and the plane is going to be brought down by Donnie, doing his thing, using his powers, superpowers in the tangent universe. So he's going to bring it down through here in the Carpathian Ridge area, which will then be the engine that falls on Donnie to kill him and brings down the United States altogether. Okay, because the U.S. flag was with it. How do people respond to Donnie's death? Here's the corpse coming out, being pulled out, and Eddie is weeping. He really cares. He was the Donnie supporter. And here is Rose smoking her cigarette further away behind Eddie, and back off on this tree all by herself, not crying a tear, not shedding a single tear, and looking almost like almost like she was a hitman, looking on like, yeah. cold, not caring. Last thing she heard from Donnie in her memory here is the expletive. Get out of my room, that stuff, that whole conversation. And so we have the divided house again. One side weeping at the end of Donnie, and the other side, smoking a cigarette, like glad it's over almost. And I know it's much more complex than that in film. It's not just that simple, but I do think that's the big picture, what's being communicated as far as the political allegory. It's not coincidental that we had that Sparkle Nation. Is the climax when the burning down of the Cunningham home begins, and the exposure to the corruption and everything takes off, and they're letting it be known. And that's before a shot eventually will come and take out Donnie in the film. Now, so if we go back and we look, we start this, if it is the October 2nd, 2024 eclipse here that corresponds to that, then we are in this tangent universe. And who knows, it may not be the 28 literal days. I don't know that it is. I'm not going to sit around worried about October 30th in particular this year or anything. But, it may or may not happen something on that date. And but I do think we're in this time frame, and something, the plan is, if you want to go back to the primary universe, is somehow Donnie is going to be eliminated, maybe politically, maybe through the courts, maybe through a shot, maybe there's a big event and is elsewhere in the world that undermines his candidacy. Who knows? I don't know exactly what comes of it, but I think that's what we're supposed to be looking for at some point when the tangent universe collapses back on itself. That bullet doesn't miss Donnie. He doesn't dodge his next bullet, whether that's literal or metaphorical. Okay, so that's what we have here in the Donnie Darko predictive programming, I think. All right, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Take care. Blessings.